So this is an electric vehicle. It used to be a Tesla Y. It has been on fire, and I'm here with Emma from evfiresafe to find out exactly what went wrong and what we can all learn from it. So Emma, what happened? How did a Tesla get from being a perfectly good vehicle to being this wreck?
Yeah, sure. So it came off the road. The driver was apparently trying to avoid hitting a kangaroo.
Yeah.
It swerved off the road, hit an Armco barrier, roadside barrier, and then kind of almost skated along the top of that barrier and then landed in a paddock, and it caught fire in the paddock.
Okay. And when it caught fire, what happened next?
Yeah, so crews were called, so Country Fire Authority was called, that was their area, and they attended. It took them about, when they first arrived on scene, they were told that it was a Tesla as they were coming to the site. When they first arrived on scene, they used a monitor, so the hose on the front of the truck, to do a first initial attack and then attack with hand lines. So it took them about 10 minutes to knock down the fire, about 35 minutes in overall, because of course it was in March in Australia, so the grass was long and dry, so it set a grass fire as well.
So it had to do with the grass fire as well?
Correct,
okay.
yeah. So overall about 35 minutes that it took them to kind of manage both fires.
Do you know how long it took from when the fire started to when the brigade arrived?
They're pretty close, so it was about 4 to 6 minutes. It wasn't long at all. That's pretty quick.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. Okay, it didn't take long to pull out. So let's take a look at the vehicle and see what we can learn from the analysis you've done. Okay, so what's going on here then with the broken frame? Is this the impact to the Armco, I guess?
Yeah, so this is where it impacted on ran into the Armco here, and the car actually kind of almost ran up the top of the Armco and slid across the top of it, as far as we understand. So the Armco barriers have like a yellow kind of sleeve on the end, so it kind of ran up that. So you can see that first point of impact here, and we know that the airbags would have deployed at that point because the pyro fuse in the penthouse of the battery was blown, so that indicates airbags went off. And then basically the Armco barrier, the car slid across it along module 2. So there are 4 modules with a total of 100.
Modules? You mean battery modules?
Battery modules, okay. With a total of 106 cells. So they go in, module 1 has 26 cells, module 2 and 3 have 28, and another 26 in module 4.
So this is the underplate of the Tesla Y, and it's got a rather nasty gouge here. So is that from it going over the Armco?
Yeah, so it measures about 1.34 metres from start to finish, and you can see it's pretty clean cut. So we believe it's gone over the kind of the upright of the Armco barrier, and it's kind of sliced through. So it's sliced through both the underplate and the cooling plate, which sits on top of here for module 2. So it sliced through both and actually scored the battery cells that were sitting in this area. So you can actually, on some of those battery cells, you can see the mark on the underside of the battery cell itself.
Yeah, so it's cut through a decent amount of metal there. Yeah, okay. And what's over here?
So over here we've got, this is the cooling plate of module 2 here, and you can see the corresponding tear right through here. So the battery cells were sitting in here like this. Yeah. So this is where it all tore through as well. Sure, so when we pulled the pack apart, we separated all the battery cells into their 4 modules. And what we're looking at here is, Poppy being cute, is module 2. Yeah. And you can see we've got cell 11, cell 12, 13, so we've marked them all up. And then we've measured the voltage, so you can see here 0 volts. Okay, so these cells look largely undamaged? We had about, of 106 prismatic LFP cells, we had about 12 that are damaged. So this one is one of those 12 that, is dead, essentially. It's not still live. When the crew got there, I understand that it didn't take them that long to put the fire out, and they actually thought that it wasn't the traction battery, which is, so in EVs there's 2 batteries. You've got the traction battery, the main big battery, and you've got the 12 volt system. They didn't think the traction battery was on fire because it wasn't
wasn't burning that much, but in fact it was. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. The crews, when I interviewed them, said to me, no, we pulled up the fire really quickly. We'd seen they'd seen some webinars we'd done, and when they put water onto the fire, it went out. So they thought that it was just a cabin fire. So they flooded the floor of the vehicle in order to try and cool the batteries down. Now, the battery pack at the time was about 22% state of charge, so very low state of charge. But when we pulled the pack open, and in fact, as soon as we rolled the car on its side to have a look at the underside of the battery pack, we could clearly see where thermal runaway had occurred.
So thermal runaway didn't consume the entire battery pack?
No. As I say, probably about 12 or so that were destroyed by fire.
Well, why do you think it didn't consume the entire battery pack?
So prismatic cells are probably a bit harder for propagation. So when we talk about propagation, we've got one cell in thermal runaway and that propagates to the next one and the next one. So with prismatics, it's a little harder because they're a bigger pack.
And what's prismatic exactly?
So prismatic describes the kind of shape, the form type of the battery. So you often see cylindrical cells like the little battery cells you see in vapes. Prismatics are commonly used in EVs. You also have pouch cells, which are used in EVs, and then some companies, especially some of the Chinese companies, use a blade cell. So it kind of looks like this, but it's longer and thinner.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So in effect, that thermal runaway didn't get to all of the battery, and that's why they would put it out relatively quickly.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I would even sort of say that the cooling action that they were doing, and they were spraying around the kind of sills of the car down low. That probably helped cool some of the cells down. But the propagation just wasn't there. The energy density the amount of energy in the battery cells just wasn't there.
Okay, so was that because I think you said it was 22% state of charge?
Yep, correct.
So why does state of charge have an effect on battery fires? And is that the propensity for a fire to start or to keep burning once it's started, or both? Yeah,
both. So the higher the state of charge, the more likely we are to have a flaming thermal runaway. So when we have a lower state of charge, typically 50% or less, we may typically see some off-gassing, but not flames. Anything typically over 50% state of charge, we'll often see off-gassing, then flame, which is why a lot of in fact, it's an international maritime law that electric vehicles are shipped from their point of manufacture to wherever they're going. They're shipped at a low state of charge, typically 30%.
How many of these cells actually are in a Tesla?
So there are 106 LFP, so lithium iron phosphate prismatic cells in the Tesla Model Y. Some Teslas use a cylindrical NMC. So last Tesla we tore down had 4,416 NMC cells. This one had 106 prismatic LFP cells. So getting them out of the pack obviously was quite tricky because they're obviously designed to stay in there pretty well. It's interesting to see. It was interesting to pull the pack apart and actually see how far the thermal runaway had propagated.
Yeah, okay. And what's in this box?
So that's just another module. So again,
looks a little bit worse to wear. Yeah,
so this one I think was at the front leading edge, probably close to the point of collision.
So what conclusions can we draw from this fire then overall? What can we learn from it?
So I think, our leading cause of battery fire in electric vehicles in Australia is collision. And then we also have quite a number of battery fires that are caused by an external fire. So the car was in a garage, it was nothing to do with the car, something else set fire to the garage and burnt it down. So this one is now battery fire number 8 in Australia. We've had high-speed collisions, we've had external fires, we've had one arson attack. We've only got one that was connected to charging, and that's an unexplained fire, but we believe there may have been a battery failure, a fault. So it's still a low number of electric vehicle battery fires overall, given there are about a quarter of a million in Australia now. But most of all, what we've learnt is that even if thermal runaway occurs, it doesn't necessarily have to be a really big incident. It doesn't necessarily go for many, many hours and shut down roads for days, that kind of thing. As I say, the crews thought that they weren't dealing with thermal runaway in this case. So it was really interesting to...
Well, they weren't really, were they? Well, I suppose they were, but only in part of the battery pack for a limited time. So,
yeah, correct. They weren't aware they were dealing with it, and it was quite a funny phone call when I rang the captain of the brigade and said, "Oh, congratulations on managing an EV in thermal runaway." So we're going to put together a kind of complete timeline of the event, include all the photos, all the work that we did to pull it apart. Tesla have kindly come to the party. We're getting these battery cells off site this week. They're going to pay for them to be responsibly disposed of through a company here in Melbourne. And we'll share the learnings with everybody and see what everyone can take out of it.
Great, thank you very much.
No worries.